Dario's joining in. Dario's a regular to the chat as well. He says, what nutritional guidelines would you recommend for someone who wishes to maintain their level of body fat, muscle mass while remaining active? What nutritional guidelines would you recommend for someone who wishes to maintain their level of body fat and muscle mass while remaining active? Eating for what it is that you're doing. And this is basically what I'm doing now. I mean, my main focus is, one, I just want to maintain my current size. In fact, I wouldn't even mind losing a bit of size, right? My main priority in terms of fitness is maintaining my strength and mobility and all that, but I'm really focusing on improving my cycling. That's something that I've been doing now over the past year or two. And over this past year, I've really made some big strides with that. So that's my main priority. And what I do is I eat to fuel my activity. So based on what I'm doing that day, it depends on how much I eat that day. So if it's a low activity day, or an active recovery day, I'm not going to eat that much. You know, I'm going to focus on like protein and veggies and just kind of keep it to a minimum. But on the days when I'm very active, then I'm going to eat a lot more food to fuel that activity. And that's what I would recommend for someone who wants to maintain and focus on their physical performance, right? Eat to fuel what it is that you're doing. And this is a different mindset compared to the typical bodybuilding nutrition. Especially bodybuilding nutrition from a fat loss point of view, right? Like with bodybuilding and fat loss, i.e. cutting, contest dieting, all that kind of stuff, the mindset is just deprive yourself, starve the fat, and just get as lean as possible, and the hell with physical performance. Like it's the mindset with a competitive bodybuilder when they're dieting is just, hey, I'm going on the crazy low carb restrictive diet, the boiled chicken, the broccoli. I'm going to do endless amounts of cardio. I just want to burn the candle at both ends. And I just want to get as lean as possible, deplete the body. And if my strength suffers, so be it, right? Because bodybuilding is not a physical sport, right? Yes, there's a lot of physical activity goes into it, but the sport of bodybuilding, like when you actually get on stage to compete, it's nothing physical. I mean, I'm not saying that it's easy, like getting on stage and competing and posing and all that, still physically demanding, but you're not judged on your physical capabilities. It's not like who's the strongest, who's got the most stamina, it's who looks the best in their underwear, right? That's what it is. It's a beauty competition for men standing up in their underwear. Who's got the best body standing up in their underwear? I.e. your posing trunks, right? It's not technically your underwear. You get up in your posing trunks, but whatever division it is, like if it's open bodybuilding, if it's classic physique, if it's physique with the board shorts, like whatever, it's still like who looks the best standing up in their shorts compared to other guys in front of a panel of judges and an auditorium of spectators. Like it's not who's the strongest, who's the fastest, who's got the most stamina. It's none of that stuff. It's not a physical sport. It's just who looks the best. And is very subjective, right? I mean, I respect bodybuilding for what it is, but it is a super subjective sport, right? I mean, it's kind of weird from that point of view. And depending on your genetic structure and your makeup and everything else, like you can bust your ass and do everything you can. And if somebody just shows up who's a little bit leaner, a little bit bigger, a little bit fuller, a little bit more handsome, a little bit whatever, like they can kick your ass just because they're a little bit better in that regard. So it's a weird sport. Whereas other sports, it's like, okay, who lifted the most weight? Who scored the most goals? Who ran the fastest? Who performed the best? Who actually did the most, performance, regardless of how they looked, right? It's like, it's a different mindset. So bodybuilding is more or less a beauty competition for who looks the best in their shorts. So it's a weird mentality. And a lot of times when people are training for that, it's just deplete yourself at all costs. And the mindset is like, I'm going to suffer it out, right? Whereas athletic performance, it's a different mindset because you can't suffer it out and deplete yourself, because when you deplete yourself and you don't fuel the body, you don't nourish it, your exercise performance suffers. And if your exercise performance suffers, then your performance in whatever sport you're doing suffers. So like if a power lifter is trying to get ready for a powerlifting meet and they starve themselves trying to make a weight class, their strength is going to go down. So they have to be very particular about making weight classes. Like they want to keep their strength and energy high while still slowly trimming off body weight. Same with other sports. Like you see this in any sports, whether it's boxing or MMA or something like that, or if physical sports, like, team sports or whatever, running, racing, endurance sports, nutrition is there to fuel the activity that they're doing. So it's a different mindset. You're eating with a purpose to perform better. Whereas bodybuilding, a lot of times it's deprive yourself to get as lean as possible so that you look good regardless of how you perform, right? So it's a different mindset. And the way you eat for sports performance is totally different than the way you would eat to just get six-pack abs at all cost. So for people who are focusing on their physical performance and simply maintaining their body weight, you eat for the activity you're doing. So on those high activity days, nourish it. I would rather you eat more and burn more and fuel the machine versus trying to deprive it. And this is the area that you're seeing big strides, especially when it comes to sports performance, nutrition all across the board in different athletic endeavors. And I think this is what's really taking things to the next level is, fueling the machine. And what you'll find a lot of times, especially like in endurance sports, it's not just the post-workout nutrition, which is very popular in bodybuilding, but it's pre and intra-workout nutrition that can make or break it, especially for long duration sports. So it depends on what it is that you're training for, how you would go about structuring that. Prime example, last weekend, I went on a group ride and we did a 203 kilometer ride. It lasted, I think it was over 7 hours of moving time. Now the total ride itself took longer than that because we had a couple breaks along the way. But total moving time was over 7 hours. And during that ride, I burned somewhere in the vicinity of 5,500 calories. So the secret to being able to do that, like a lot of people think, oh man, you got some stamina and endurance to do that. But the secret to being able to perform and sustain your energy for such a long duration is pre and during workout nutrition. So eating before you're hungry and drinking before you're thirsty and staying on top of that throughout the entire ride. Staying on top of it. Because if you get to the point where you become dehydrated and you become hungry, it's over. You blew your doors and you're not going to be able to sustain it. You're going to just run out of energy and bonk. So you have to stay on top of it. And it starts, obviously it starts before the ride even begins because you want to fuel up beforehand. But even within the first hour, you got to be slamming back calories, you got to be slamming back fluids, and keep that up throughout the entire duration of the ride in order to sustain the high energy levels. Whereas the bodybuilding mentality, a lot of times you see people doing fasted workouts and depleted workouts, and they're trying to just deplete themselves and burn up as much calories and stored body fat as possible. And yeah, that can work for short duration workouts and work for just quickly losing weight. But from a performance point of view, it's not the way to go. So it's like chalk and cheese. And I've really learned a lot more about well-rounded nutrition since I've started prioritizing cycling and getting around different types of athletes. Because I got to be honest, for me, I spent years in the bodybuilding gym bubble where only people and athletes that I associated with were bodybuilders and gym goers and people who are in similar sports, like bodybuilders and powerlifters and that circle, people who worked out in a weight gym. And the nutrition and the mindset and the training is very, very, very niched down. But then when you get outside and you're into other sports and activities, you're getting around cyclists and runners and triathletes and people who are in different avenues, it's even though we're all physically exercising, it's a totally different world, right? It's like chalk and cheese. And some of the supplements that you would see in endurance, you would never see it in bodybuilding. I remember I was looking for energy gels, they're so common in running and endurance sports and stuff like that. I went to the local supplement store, which is a bodybuilding supplement store, and I went in there asking about energy gels, and the guy behind the counter had no idea what the hell I was talking about. I mean, here he is, you work in a freaking supplement store, this is your business, and you have no idea what I'm talking about because it's an endurance supplement versus a bodybuilding supplement. So, I mean, it's when you kind of broaden your perspective and look at the bigger picture, it's amazing, you know, and it really helps to give you a better, well-rounded view of it. And I have a much more deeper appreciation of sports nutrition, having delved into different types of sports, from the bodybuilding, from powerlifting and strength sports, to now long distance endurance sports. And it's, you know, it's a very, it's unique depending on what it is that you're training for. But like I say, I can go on and on about that, but I'm just going to leave it at that. If you have any other specific questions related to this, Dario, feel free to email me. And again, my email is down in the description. We can chat about it offline.